Okay, good morning. Welcome to day two. Thanks everybody for being here again. Do we have many people online?
Uh, Fernando and Sophia's around, but she's not in the meeting.
Okay. All right, so let's get started. The first topic we had on here is on V2 API removal. This has been a long-term discussion. We've got a link on here.
So the patch links doesn't remove it, it just turns it off by default.
Okay. And it's failing check all over the place. And I rechecked it on August 20th. That's really weird. I don't even remember.
Well, it's possible that Tempest is still testing V2.
Yeah, I mean, it's testing a whole bunch, or it's failing all kind of jobs here. So,
Oh, okay. Oh, like all of the CIs.
Did we look into things like, I mean, I don't know, like how would CI Nova, does it even use V3 everywhere?
Matt's got a note about halfway down for September 22nd. This is going to kill the gate, since there's still parts of Nova using legacy attachment flow.
Well, they can still use the legacy flow, they just need to use the right endpoint.
Okay.
Actually, I have another related to this whole thing. That reminds me of. I'll get to that in a minute.
So we probably need a patch in DevStack that turns it on.
Well, so maybe this is related to what I was trying to figure out. I've been confused for quite a while about why we deploy Cinder endpoints the way we do. Like in a normal DevStack environment, we create different service types for V2 and V3, and nobody else does that. And I don't know why we do it that way when no one else, as far as I know, has ever done it that way. So if you look at like OpenStack endpoint list, Vanilla has service type share, Nova has service type compute. Then we have like service name, Cinder V2, service type volume V2, name Cinder, service type block storage,
Yeah.
name Cinder V3. Like
Block storage is mapped to V3, right? So that's.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this is really how this is supposed to work. Like, I don't know why we ended up with separate types for V2 versus V3.
I think it was part of the migration because there was at some point at one of the Vancouver summits, I think they just standardized what the names of the service types should be.
But we're the only ones that are versioning those types.
Yeah, but we did that before they.
No, Manila does it differently. So, is this just a DevStack thing, or is this like a happens elsewhere thing too?
I think to be honest, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's a DevStack thing about how service endpoints are created.
It very well could just be a DevStack thing.
But
I think it's wrong is the thing. Like I don't.
Right. No. But what I think is the idea is that the block storage one is the one that people are supposed to use, and the other things are legacy. But like with everything in DevStack, legacy turns into forever because nobody remembers to go back and take it out.
So well, if block storage is the new current one, then like that's fine because that one at least looks
right.
Safe.
That should be right. And I think the other ones are just.
So I don't know that some of that may be related to what needs to be patched up to actually do this, because probably there's some stuff that's using the V2 endpoint or in DevStack itself, or from Nova, or I don't know. we even have a job that uses Cinder as a glance backend? I
No,
don't think we even test that. Really.
no, and I've been meaning to work on this. There's a patch up.
There's
for-
one
in Glance.
There's one in glance for that, right?
No.
No? Oh,
There's a patch up to introduce a functional test, but it hasn't been merged.
yeah, we should really be testing that somewhere, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different.
Right.
So I don't think anybody's opposed to the concept of getting rid of
V2,
V2. I think it's more just we need to figure out
what
we
all
have-
is going wrong.
Yeah, we need to figure out what we have to do to make that work. Because supposedly anybody that's relying on V2 can just use V3.0 work.
Yeah, because it's totally backward compatible.
Yeah.
Right. It's just that they hard coded the V2 in their request that work when they can.
I mean, even the functional job failed, which is. The functional job failed just because it has a test that looks for what versions the server reports. So that's totally expected. That needs to be fixed as part of this patch. Oh, well, actually, he has functional stuff in this patch, but I guess looks like this patch actually contains something that should fix that, but it apparently doesn't. Because that looks a lot like what that test was failing on. That's strange. Is Sean working on this? I know this started like a while ago.
Don't know. Last time I'd heard he was still looking at it.
It seems like something we should do, but I don't know that it's very time critical in any way. So it seems like it's kind of just up to who wants to work on it. Because it's not like it's costing us a lot to still have this hanging around.
Okay.
But we should get rid of it if we can. I mean, I don't really know if there are any particular procedures that we should be following for doing this. I guess, what did we do with V1? I don't really didn't do a whole lot, did we?
I don't think so. It was a long time ago, though.
It was.
Auto test failure.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah, there are. When we got rid of V1, it was the same kind of deal where V2 was almost identical to V1. There was like 2 or 3 little changes, but theory was you could pretty much just move over directly, and I think in general that worked.
What's our plan with the Cinder client?
So there's actually a patch up already. I think that I don't know that it probably doesn't remove it, but I think it was part of this major version bump thing. I think.
Yeah, I think.
Oh
it
no,
is.
that
No.
removes the client V1 API.
Oh,
So V2 will hang out in the client for a while still.
Okay.
Because we're just now going to remove V1 for the new major version of the client. And
Okay.
presumably in a couple of years when we removed V2 from the client, it'd be another major version bump.
Right, and then this is just changing the default anyway. It's not actually removing V2, but it's getting ready to.
Well, yeah.
It's OpenStack client.
Defaults to OpenStack client. Default to V3. That should have like already happened, probably. OpenStack client still defaults to V2. Although I guess in most environments, you're going to have manually hold it which one you want to connect to, right? So I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe the default's not very interesting anyway. Everybody sources a RC file. Although looking at this, this means that moving V1 from the client, we need to track as an OpenStack client change too, it looks like. That's referenced in this same file right here.
So I guess, so we don't have V1 anymore, do we?
No,
Right,
not at the server.
Right. Okay.
But supposedly the client can still use it.
Just think right.
I really
In case it's an old.
I mean, V2 has been out there for so long that I think it's really unlikely that anyone's actually using V1. They're so similar that there's no reason to like hang on to it.
So it sounds like we're in agreement on this, that we do want to continue to move forward with this, but it's not urgent. Need to find out if Sean's still working on it or if there's somebody else interested in doing it and figuring out what all's broken right now.
Well, I think the reason maybe for the OpenStack client patch to default to V3 in some of these jobs in here, like
we're using the.
Well, like the NFS job I just looked at, it calls OpenStack volume type create. It fails with a 404, presumably because it's trying to hit the V2 API.
Well, since that's a dependency, it should have used this.
Yeah.
Although when
I think it installed OpenStack client from. Oh, no, it didn't. Okay. I don't know. It seems like a lot would have to happen for this to be done.
Yeah, maybe let's just leave it to you.
Well, I mean, the defaulting it to disabled conceivably do, but there's not a lot of time to call this out, really.
Right, because
unless Sean is like actively doing this like right now, then I don't know how that's going to get done.
So imagine we have to do something in DevStack to or allow it to be enabled with DevStack until somebody has time to go through and fix all this stuff that isn't using V2.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like, it makes a lot of sense to change it as the default in the service, and then every CI doesn't actually use that setup. Seems like we should kind of be able to do it
all at once.
Yeah, seems like that's what we want to do. Then you end up kind of testing not what people actually run.
Well, it looks like there don't seem to be any bad implications to not doing this in train, other than it's longer. You know, it's probably been deprecated for like 5 cycles or something. Let's say early U. Do this. Okay.
Do we have some kind of, what did we do when we deprecated V2? Does it like spew out warning messages or something? Remember?
Yeah, there's there's a config option for it. It's marked as deprecated. Put out a log message.
So it's still on, but it just yells at you when you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it should show up in the sample config as deprecated. it should be obvious to anybody messing with the config file.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just do it you.
Okay.
Because it'll be an early thing. There's all sorts of stuff can break.
Okay.
It's probably non-consequential, except it's all gate stuff. And so at this part of the cycle,
Don't want to mess with it.
yeah, people start screaming and
And then, and saying that, not tested equals remove, so Cinder's not testing properly, remove it.
Yeah.
Okay. So done with that discussion?
yeah, I think
We've
so.
reached agreement. I have it documented. So what do we know about active HA?
Gorka.
I think Gork actually joined the call here.
Gorka?
Yep. Am I wrong?
Hey!
Hi.
Hi,
but
Gorka.
I let Eric talk.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot in particular on this. I kind of just wanted to check in and see where we are on this whole thing. I think the current state of things is the Ceph driver supports this, and I think MacroSan now does as of the other day too. Is anybody looking into adding driver support for this for other drivers? Or I know there were some questions for a while about what was required to enable it, and I don't know if people still have questions like that, or if no one is just looking at it in general.
I don't think anyone's actually looking at it.
That's
at all.
kind of my impression. So this has been a big thing for Ceph and our product because we're shipping Ceph deployments for particular use cases that use this. So this is going out in I think the next release of our product. We're actually going to be doing this, and I assume that for some backends there will be requests to do it from customers at some point, but I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot of stuff going on. So for the moment, the use case that we're targeting for it in the product is really Ceph only for now. So we're kind of happy just running along and doing that. And I guess I'll say that, we're going to definitely be working on this as a feature that we're using and maintaining. So whenever other drivers want to go add support for it, we can help figure things out. There is some various documentation in the Cinder contributor stuff already around what it means. Yeah, what it means for drivers and how to worry about locks and some of that stuff. There's been desire both, downstream for our product and upstream to figure out things about interesting automated test rigs for this to help prove out whether a driver functions in this environment, which seems like a useful thing, but I don't think anybody has really gotten anywhere yet on actually trying to build anything to do that. Maybe at some point we'll start doing that, but I don't really know, just because right now nobody's doing it, but people keep saying it might be nice to have.
Yeah, we have for years, and
Yeah.
it comes there, and everybody's like, okay, whatever.
Well, and it's fundamentally kind of a hard thing to do because you need something that's a little broader scope than like Tempest to really do something with it.
The Rally is probably more.
Well, you need something like Rally, but you also need to be able to kill services and, chop off network connections and that kind of stuff. And it's there's not a lot of obvious infrastructure in OpenStack for where you would start to build that. So it's, building an automated test suite for it that's actually interesting is a fairly big project for somebody to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We haven't even any real just basic tests to make sure you can create 100 volumes and delete 100 volumes.
I mean, that would
And copies of.
Rally's good at that kind of test.
They can do a lot of stuff in parallel.
Yeah, because it was kind of made to do that. I don't know that anybody. I don't ever look at Rally much, and I don't know that like our Cinder team that does. I know there's other groups that work on OpenStack-wide performance and scalability stuff that use it, but
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it in depth in Cinder like other than when I was checking it all out when it was new. I haven't looked at it a lot since then.
I used to use it a lot.
Yeah,
And doing a lot of performance testing with my driver.
right.
When I was working heavy on the 3-part driver, just to make sure it didn't fall over when there's a lot of requests and stuff coming. But I'm not sure anyone really looks at OpenStack as a huge load,
Right.
like a web server or thousands of users trying to do things all.
Well, I mean, some people do, but it just depends a lot on the environment.
Yeah. We typically don't care until we get a customer complaining, hey, I just tried to create 1,000 volumes and delete them all.
The
And it
scenario.
took forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the scenario that we're deploying this for is not really a high volume kind of thing because it's for the edge stuff, and it's having remote edge sites that are fairly small that are like one rack, and you can have a redundant self cluster, and if you have a node failure, it keeps chugging along and that kind of stuff. So it's really more for resiliency than any kind of performance load balance kind of stuff.
And especially in the case of having a containerized control plane, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So we will surely know pretty soon, I think, that the functionality in Cinder in general seems to be in good shape because we're going to be testing it and shipping it pretty soon. But as far as getting other driver owners on there, I mean, there's some documentation out there. I don't know if anybody's been reading it or not.
Chris Mayo was looking at it for the Seagate family of drivers at one point. I'm not sure if he still is.
Yeah.
But he could potentially be a guinea pig if he is still looking at that.
Yeah.
I think there are a number of environments that are running with HA in place, and it's just working.
There are environments that have had that working since Icehouse.
Yeah.
It's HA that works until it doesn't work. Kind of looks like HA, but things might happen. And it's entirely possible that there are a lot of people deploying Cinder already like that, and they're just okay with it. I don't know.
Mileage may vary.
Well, I mean, it will break whenever something actually happens. But, Winston was telling us many years ago about how they deployed stuff that way. So
Use it until it breaks, and then when it breaks, then just redo it. Keep going.
yeah. So I don't know. I think that's about all I had. I mean, we're working on it for our stuff, and I assume that others will be interested in it eventually.
Yeah.
When that's the case, we'll keep doing what we can there to help along anybody else trying to enable it.
I mean, are you actually finding bugs that need to be fixed in what you're doing, or is it more just validation?
Well, I don't know that we've actually started testing it yet, so. I mean, Gorka thought through a lot of the kind of design stuff that needed to be fixed when he was working on this a little while ago. But it's been a while since he did most of that work, I think. So the first pass upstream was really just building an infrastructure to where we had the right stuff to enable this at all. The assumption now is if you have a driver that turns it on, which is Ceph and MacroSan, that there's at least a chance that those should work. I haven't looked at the MacroSan driver to see what they were really doing there. I just saw they turned it on in their code. I don't know. Gorka, anything you want to tell the world about this area in general?
Not really. Lately, John Bernard has been testing the RBD. So before we enable the active support in RBD, he tested it, and I think he's also been doing a little bit of testing lately. But I don't know the status.
Okay.
That.
Well, if nobody's looking for info or anything there, I don't really have anything else on it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the update
Yeah.
and that you guys are continuing to work on it. Okay. All right. One of our favorite topics as of late. Review/git merge the default volume type change.
We should finish that.
Yeah, we should.
Yes.
Before anybody else can.
Is it just waiting for reviews?
I think it's mostly waiting for reviews. He's been looking at it for a while. Is Rajat on here?
Mm-hmm. He was typing out here a minute ago.
Oh.
See.
Hi, I am here.
Hey, Rajat. Thanks for joining. So where are we at with the default volume type change?
Yeah, I still have to optimize some of the tests, and there is some work pending, but I would still appreciate some reviews on it.
Okay.
Who was asking about the micro version bump there?
I think that's
Yeah.
Rajat.
Oh, okay. I don't know of a reason that it would need one. It because it's not actually changing any parameters or return values for volume create, right? I mean, I think it works at the API level the same that it always has, unless I'm missing something. And you do a volume create, and you end up with a volume with a type instead of a type of none. But that's not
That's an API change.
right.
Yeah.
You get something that's slightly different, but the API is the same.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to do anything with microversions for this.
When do I need a microversion?
Well, the request and response don't actually change.
Right. Yeah, so I don't think we need one then. Well, that's good, so it doesn't complicate it further.
Yeah, the only argument would be if there were a reason someone would be relying on having none as the volume type.
So the thing about that is, if you said I really want to create a volume that has type none, what you're saying is I want a type that's not specified to have any particular specs, and it could kind of just land wherever. So the fact that you now end up having it assigned to a type, you still get the same outcome of a volume that gets put somewhere. It's just now it's actually labeled.
Right.
I don't think there's really any semantic. there's no way that I see
Right,
that
and
it makes
still-
anything worse. Like
And we
if-
did have, there is the config setting to force a default type now, right? So
Correct.
you couldn't go to an arbitrary OpenStack cloud and be guaranteed that you're going to get none if you don't request a particular type, because depending on the configuration, you might get one right now.
right.
So we're not really changing any behavior
Yeah.
from the API. Yeah. So,
I mean, the only behavior change is that people don't have the opportunity to land in this like undefined place anymore. And nobody should really be
And that
relying
seems to
on
be-
that. So it's hard to think of any complaints that people would have.
yeah, I didn't think, yeah.
Okay, so it seems like the to-do out of this is the team needs to review the patch and try to get it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this should
And
be a priority too.
I need to do that because I was tracking this one closely for a while and I haven't looked at
So
it
has
lately.
some of the stuff landed?
Spec, I think.
Oh.
So there was one discussion point remaining in the spec that we should be able to update the default type or not.
Oh, I thought we settled that already. They have to be able to update it. I mean, at least that's what I keep saying. Thought we already.
I think Brian disagrees with that.
Who does?
Yeah, me.
Oh, right.
Damn it, Brian.
Being able to update the default NC
So-
volume type.
So
Right.
the question was whether you should be able to add specs to the default volume type.
Oh,
And
I think we should keep it simple and say no, and if they want to do that, then they create a new one and retype.
We can set that as the default type for the site.
I guess I'm not sure why that's simpler though.
Well, so
I mean,
what I wasn't clear about is suppose, right? So you start with a new installation that's got this.
Yeah.
You create the volumes, and they're getting the underscore default,
right,
and then you edit the that volume type.
right.
Does that have any implications for existing volumes with that?
Well, you can't edit it if the volumes exist on it anyway, right?
You can't.
Don't we
No.
block that? So I mean,
right. You can't
Yeah.
change a type that's in use.
Then
Okay.
that solves this problem.
Because it's going to be in use, right? So it's going to be
Well-
impossible to do it unless you do it before
You
you
can do
deploy.
it. You can do it before you've created any volumes.
Right. So, which would call for more planning ahead then.
So I guess the question is, if you can't modify it when the volumes are in use, then
It
Yeah,
doesn't
why
matter.
bother?
we don't really need to go put code in to not let people
Yeah.
modify it anyway. Because
This is done.
yeah. For the people who do want to modify it before they do anything, I think it's okay
That's fine.
that they do that. It's I mean, I don't see any problems that would come out of that.
Well, the only thing I was thinking was,
It's bad practice, but
Well, there's actually
Yeah.
use cases that we've seen in our product that are related to this, where somebody has a request out right now where I think they wanted to figure out how to force a user creating a volume to choose a type. So you do something like you make the default one something that's unsatisfiable
and then they
with
must,
some spec that doesn't work, and then you tell them to pick, another one.
So when it creates with that, it will always fail.
Right. So there's weird use cases like that people have definitely come up with.
But isn't that just a backdoor to forcing them to create a volume type that does work, which is what the volume.
Well, the volume type creation is an admin operation, though. This is pushing that off to users.
Right, but the reason why you force a user to even select a volume type is because there is no default set.
Well, I'm trying to remember. There was a whole nother backstory to this thing where the volume types were tied to availability zones, and they were doing some kind of access control thing. I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, the situation there was basically that if you didn't define a volume type, basically you have different availability zones and you don't want people to be able to create from one availability zone into another volumes. So the only way, if you define a default volume type that has no backend defined, it may land anywhere. You don't know where it's going to land. So the only way to make sure that they specify one that actually works is to create a default volume type that will never create a volume.
Right, because if they have instances running in some AZ that can only be talked to volumes in that same AZ, then you want to make them create them in the right place. Because if they just say, give me a volume anywhere, it'll land somewhere that doesn't actually work. It'll create, but then they can't connect to it.
So is that because
Exactly.
the user itself has no AZ assigned to it? Which always forces everything they create to land in that AZ?
Well, you can specify AZs for volume types in Cinder.
In the
But you don't have, if you define in the volume type, how do you define a different volume type for different users? The default, we don't have that feature.
Right, because
Right.
in this case with the AZ thing, you would want different users to have, like you get one default volume type, and Brian gets some other default volume type, but we don't have any way to do that, which is why they get forced into this choice.
of picking a,
One that's actually available to them.
because we're not smart enough to say, hey, if this user is in an AZ, then he only has visibility to these volume types, so if they don't specify one, they don't get that one by default.
Yeah.
But the kind of higher level point was that there are probably users doing all kind of weird things with modifying volume types that we have never envisioned. And
Yeah.
we probably, in general, want to let them doing that.
Well, if you can modify a volume type, then
Yeah.
if you're prevented from modifying a volume type after it's been used, then it solves the
Yeah, you have
issue that I
you have to delete the volumes that are on it to actually change
to
the
change it.
stuff.
Okay.
Or you create a brand new volume type with all the settings you want, and then assign that as the default.
I think that's the normally recommended procedure, and just retype to a new one.
Yeah, I guess so. Right. So, all right. The fact that you can't modify a volume type that's being used is good. So that's cool. And the only other thing I was thinking with not being able to modify the under default one is just if we want it to mean the same thing in all installations.
I think that
And I don't know.
I don't think it actually achieves that though, because
it's going to have no.
I mean, it's kind of like now if you create volumes with no type,
You never know what's going to happen.
yeah, that doesn't mean the same thing across installations currently, because it just depends on what they've configured for storage.
Okay, then I'm cool with those. Right. So if you don't plan ahead, you're not going to be able to modify this volume type anyway.
Well,
If you modify it,
if you
it
really,
doesn't matter.
what people are going to do if they really want to is they're going to say, I'm smart and I think this will work okay, and they'll go in the database and just change it, which is easy to do and will work a lot of the time.
More or less.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. I just want to say out loud that I hardly disapprove of going into the database and doing anything. Okay,
Yeah.
just had to get that off my chest. No, I was just doing a
You like
review.
you like editing the database?
Sure. Oh, I love doing it, but I mean, gosh, I was looking at some of the database management code plans anyway, which I imagine is similar for every other service. Check some stuff. It makes some assumptions that you're not monkeying with things. So for instance, to purge, it checks the deleted at time, not whether something is actually marked as deleted. So if you, yeah, anyway, so in normal operations, right, you can't get deleted at time without actually deleting. But if you go into the database, you could do all sorts of stuff and set that field, and if everything will operate fine until you hit purge, and a lot of stuff could disappear. So, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, okay. That's why I felt like I had to say that out loud. Okay, but yeah, then I'll go ahead and then I'm fine with the editing. Let's just treat the underscore default thing just like everything else. That makes it simpler.
Okay.
All right.
And it sounds like we need a new feature of being able to define a default volume type for an AZ.
Yeah, I think we have a
At some
downstream request that we just haven't figured out what we'll do with it yet, but
Yeah.
I think we're tracking that in our product already.
Maybe we do that by making the scheduler smarter.
Well, that's where a lot of this stuff is applied.
The problem is that you could have multiple volume types already associated with one particular AZ. Which one do you pick?
And
That's
you
the
can,
default.
depending on what kind of requirements there are, you could have some whole, policy system that lets you assign different defaults to different users, or I don't know.
It's true.
There's a bunch of different.
We want to make it so I guess
So
use cases.
yeah, it would be good to find out. We spent many years saying that volume types are the answer to everything in Cinder. It would be good, and they usually are. But it would be good to go and figure out what people are actually doing and what they want. And maybe that's a forum session. It's what are you guys doing with volume types anyway?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Because there's probably a lot of interesting stuff happening that we just don't hear about.
I use it. I designed it so that they can use it as a deployment pattern. So my driver actually, because our company's product does replication at the back end. So then you could potentially have a deployment configuration that's a different block volume type.
That's how John originally wanted to design replication. It's just driver can do whatever the hell it wants, just put it in a volume type.
Yeah, that's the easiest way, and it made sense actually for us. Yeah.
Which in hindsight makes sense now.
Right. And
So that allows us to have a specific replication happen in specific nodes. Backends actually, that's happening.
for volume basis.
Yeah. So listening is scenarios, AZ versus.
Okay, so need to review the patches, get them into place. We agree that we do not need to change the way default volume types are handled, and schedule a forum session to talk about volume types.
I think all those underscores are ugly, but I gave up on that argument a while ago. I'll just throw that out there.
That was the point. You want to force people to, right?
Yeah,
To do
force
something.
people to do something.
Yeah.
So that's spec is.
We have Unicode now. We can put like an
Not
emoji in
really.
there.
There's always
Oh, default poop emoji.
I'd be for that, except I'm sure that would break something. It'd be a good test, though. I mean, make sure everything's got more Unicode. Probably.
Well, I wrote a test a long time ago that makes a volume with a name and description with Unicode in it because it broke a bunch of drivers
I bet.
years ago. Most of them, I think, with Python 3 have been sorting that stuff out. But you used to be able to break everything in OpenStack by just inserting Unicode characters into any field. Like a few years ago, every single service was just tear apart like that. That's the first thing I broke Storyboard with last time I looked at Storyboard.
So you can file a story to rename default poop.
And watch it fall apart.
All right.
So you think a default of poop would look less ugly than underscores?
I was
How about
hoping
underscore underscore poop underscore?
That's emphatic poop. Can you italicize that as an emoji?
No, but you can add the steaming lines.
Oh man. All right.
All right, sorry.
The next topic.
Oh.
You did so well the first day.
I would just like to note that I was not the one that drove down that path. I just walked it after the first people blazed the trail. Dad, please don't listen to this recording. All right. Hey, we're not behind anymore.
So, okay, has that spec merged? Because I can't find it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so it's not an issue.
I thought
Okay.
it merged.
Yeah, I thought.
Oh, so it was just a question Rajat had. Okay.
Okay. I didn't say because I thought I remembered merging it. All right. Backup excuse me. Backup tests leaking notifications.
It's all fixed now.
It's all fixed?
I think so.
Okay.
I think
Haven't
Rajat said
seen-
it was too. Was that Rajat writing on here?
Hard to produce, never occurred in local environment. Maybe.
No, I mean I wrote a fix that like will definitely make this failure not happen.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And is that the patch here?
Yeah. It does not fix the fact that we still have unit tests that fire notifications that drift off into random unknown places they're maybe not supposed to be.
Okay.
It just ignores caring about that.
Okay.
So they don't fail. And they do test still that the notifications happen. The fundamental problem of this whole thing, just for context, that in like 3 years no one has wanted to actually go to completely figure out, is that we do a bunch of unit tests and we set up some kind of fake notification bucket. And so when you fire notifications for like volume create start, backup start, or whatever, they land in this bucket and then the unit test says make sure this notification happened. But the way it's written in the unit tests, you end up, it was usually the backup ones for some reason.
That's okay. We don't run them anymore. So.
Well, unit tests we do. So what would happen was you would run a test and say assert that the notification volume start is in the bucket, and it was supposed to be like the only one there, or volume create. But there would be a different one in there from some backup test that like left its test area and landed in your test, and they would just randomly happen. And nobody really ever wanted to go figure out exactly what it is that lets that happen. And so we did a couple things. Some of it we fixed by, instead of testing it by firing notifications and having them land somewhere and then going and reading them, we started just mocking where they're sent from and make sure that the send call is the right thing. And then the other method, just because we haven't gone and rewritten all these tests, that was this last patch, is the assert for, the assert used to be look in the received notifications list. There should be two in there. There's one that's like volume create and one for volume delete or whatever. Now the assert just says make sure there's a volume create and a volume delete. But if there's another like backup progress one in there, just ignore it and keep going. Which means there's still some sloppiness happening in our unit tests that's not really supposed to be happening. But we decided that having slightly weaker unit tests was better than having the gates randomly fail constantly.
Right.
So eventually, maybe some really enterprising person will go actually fix the root of this. But it's been happening for quite a long time, and nobody has done that yet. So probably not for a while. This was just a topic of discussion because it broke gate jobs so many times that we had to do something with it.
Okay.
But at least now the gate doesn't fail due to this. So we're
That's
you
nice.
know, surviving at least.
Okay, good. Because I just remembered when we left Denver, it was I wasn't
I
sure if
think,
somebody was actually going to tackle it or not. So thank you for fixing it.
I think I may have tackled this before Denver, but people just weren't convinced if it was going to work or not.
Okay.
Because this was fixed in February.
May.
It was, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dependency install mechanism for containers.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, we discussed it in Denver. I know you were doing some work with it.
Yeah, the patch that I had out there emerged.
Okay.
So this was the adding all the requirements, splitting it for different.
Yeah, taking the stuff that was in just that text file, the driver requirements thing, which nobody uses, but it's just human readable.
Right.
Putting that into setup.py.
Oh yeah. So there was some confusion around that, at least for me, versus somebody else. I think Sean was saying that now that we have this, we shouldn't add things to the driver requirements.txt file. And I wasn't sure if we figured out what the system was supposed to be with that or not.
So the caveat with that is that all of the Ceph stuff has to stay in that file because they're
Right.
not pipey installable.
Yeah, that's right. Anything you can't pip install has to be pip
Only the
installed.
stuff that's pip installable will work with these setup.py changes that I put in
Right.
place. And so, say for example, you have a new driver that has a new Python library that's pure Python. The very first thing you have to do is you have to add it to the global requirements
Right.
and the other files that are in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, any patch you put up in Cinder that adds that into our setup.py is going to fail on that requirements change. So,
Right.
And so you were able to get all of the driver requirements and global requirements?
not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them I couldn't because people actually looked at the external libraries and decided that they were completely not Python 3 compatible.
Okay.
So there, the drivers that I removed from my patch that are still now in the driver requirements file either had requirements that weren't pipey installable,
Okay.
or were not compliant with whatever requirements are for putting them in global requirements.
Right.
So it kind of begs the question: if they're not good enough for global requirements, why are we allowing them?
Well,
On one hand, but we're not putting those libraries in our code. It's just a reference to it. So
yeah, and I mean, the bar would really be people run CI. I mean, it must at least kind of function, at least in Python 2. So,
yeah, Python 3 is
yeah,
the Ceph stuff is the outlier and the oh my god at
yeah.
the same time.
Well, and if it ends up that Ceph is the only one in there, then, like, I mean, we could just get rid of it at that point, because the main reason I started this whole thing was so people going and writing RPM packages could figure out
What was needed?
yeah, like what was actually required for some of these things.
Yeah. And so those things still exist. They're just in the setup.py now.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell it is. That lists them out explicitly.
I mean, Ceph might well be the only one that doesn't actually ship a IP thing.
Yeah, and the reason is because they all are C libraries, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, they could if they really wanted to, because libvirt used to be like that, and they eventually made a whole libvirt Python library that they do ship on IP.
Oh, really?
Because they used to be the same way.
That would solve so many problems with so many projects.
Would it? Yeah.
The Ceph RBD libraries were IP packages.
I mean, somebody in the Ceph world could presumably do that if they really wanted to, but I don't know if anyone's asked for it or if anyone's ever raised this as a concern.
So the benefit of that is that we now have in setup the requirements that drivers need, and so you can build a container and make sure that it pulls in
Yeah,
the right libraries for the ones that have PyP support.
Yeah,
for
so
their
if you're
packages.
deploying Cinder with a 3-par backend, you can do pip install extras equals HB3par, and it'll install Cinder, Cinder volume, Cinder API, and all of the 3-par libraries too
Okay.
that are required.
Do we have that documented somewhere?
It might have been in my patch.
I mean,
I don't think it is. I was just looking at your patch,
Okay.
but
So this is
Oh, yeah,
only for
no.
people that are installing with pip.
well, that's what I was
Installing
thinking.
Cinder, it's not an RPM thing.
I
But
don't know that we really want to recommend people deploy Cinder with pip most of the
Okay.
time, but
yeah.
okay.
it's probably more useful for people
It's
doing
useful for
packaging and
people
development.
that are building containers with Helm
Yeah,
and Helm charts and stuff like that, which is where we're going with Airship and all that nonsense.
Oh, that's right.
So all the
That's,
containers that OpenStack Helm builds, that's how they do it.
okay.
is that separate from all the cola stuff?
It's all tied in
Oh, yeah.
together. It's bizarre. It's
Yeah.
Loki, all Loki based stuff. Helm uses Loki, and Loki is what actually builds. And I still haven't wrapped my head around how it all works yet.
Because I think all the
That
container
far.
stuff that we do was rooted in the cola stuff. I don't know if this is a whole separate. It doesn't really matter. I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, it was originally Cola, and Loki's involved, which is another container building mechanism within OpenStack. And
Yeah.
Helm is on top of that, which is just a bunch of YAML files that describes what to pull when and where, and all a tangled web of and complication. Because OpenStack itself isn't complicated enough. Anyway, so that patch was an attempt to make it easier for people that are using Helm and Loki to build container images of Cinder to get all the dependencies to, because that really is a major problem for
It
people
makes
that are
it
using
makes a lot of sense. Will this work? Is this tied into the global requirements checking at all? This new part that you made?
So if you,
Well, it's in okay. So they're in
Depends
lower
on what you mean.
constraints. Well, I'm wondering, like, if one of these libraries changes the license or something, will that pop up as a flagged thing with requirements
if their
updates?
upstream changes the license and they ship a new version, I don't know.
I think since it's in lower constraints text, I think it will. I think the requirements team will see that.
Which is good.
Yeah. No, it is very good. I mean, that's actually happened before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyone remembers that whole debacle from many years ago?
And that was actually one of the checks that I had to go through with all these other libraries to answer a bunch of questions like, is the code look okay?
Right.
Is it crap? Is it Python 3? What's their
Yeah.
license? And I had to specify all of that for all
Well,
of
and
them.
that was, I was looking at some of that on that Python 3 CI review thing, because there were some libraries that ran on Python 3, but if you look on PyP, they didn't actually flag,
Flag
we're a
it as-
Python 3 project.
Yeah.
And then you got to wonder if they're testing that and all kind of stuff. But cool, seems good.
So it kind of begs the question, how for like Ceph, since its libraries are RPM packages for RBD stuff, should that be put in the bind dep? And
Probably. I don't know if we really.
How does that really get consumed, and how do we tie that bind depth dependency in there specifically for when you're deploying against Ceph
Yeah, I don't think
versus everything else?
I don't think the bend up stuff has any ability for that. But it's the same problem we have with drivers that have like CLI utilities you have to install. Like we don't
Yeah.
track those either, like
No.
at all. I don't really know if that's something that anybody's concerned about or what.
This is one of the problems of being one of the unique projects within OpenStack is that we have so many external dependencies that make up Cinder itself. It's all the stupid drivers and all their weird, bizarre dependencies. There's no mechanism really in place
Right.
to track if you're just deploying against Dell XYZ driver. Oh, it needs this jar file and it needs to come from here.
Yeah.
And you
Well, and we
Don't
know.
worry, I'm working on reducing the number of drivers, so that'll be less of a problem.
Well, that's true.
Well,
If we can reduce them down to 2 LVM and Ceph, then we have no problem.
well, and we know that like, the CLI tools and stuff, they're not like open source things. So I mean, we're never gonna do much with them directly. So we're kind of stuck with the run something when you load the driver and let it complain.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to build a container that has that driver support, well, you're going to have to build your own.
Yep. I mean, that's what that's what supported drivers for our product are doing now. Because if it's not an open source thing, we don't pull it in and build it. We let the vendor do it.
We have a couple patches out there. The vmem client library, that one didn't pass. The PY-XCLI library, which is the IBM library, that was
That was adding stuff to requirements.
yeah, those two were completely rejected because of their code and license and whatnot. I'm like, okay, well, sucks to be them.
Good code seems okay. Packaged in.
Yeah.
Good.
So maybe the issues with drivers that use those two clients will get ironed out because they're not Python 3 compatible anyway. So we'll be dropping them. So it
Well, I mean,
might even be a
Is
problem.
XIV even like alive? I haven't heard anything about that one in a long time.
I mean, we had good developers on it, now they've disappeared.
Yeah.
Apparently, IBM XIV Gen 3 can do stuff for my business.
Oh,
Tuning free high performance. So it's still listed on their website. And is it on Red Hat's website?
I don't know that we've ever done XIV, maybe. I don't know.
I thought it was funny that your website, the day that you guys made the announce, started to look like an IBM website. It's like, well. All right. So, okay, so that covers that topic. Thank you for working on that. Now we can contain our excitement, our drivers, or
Something.
I don't know.
Some of them.
So okay. The other topic I had on here next was the SQLAlchemy to Alembic migration that Sean had brought up. The first work item we had there was to start collapsing down the database migrations, which I don't think anybody worked on that yet.
I don't think so.
Because I have not heard any more like
So,
urgency around this.
oh, wait, so collapsing down the migrations?
Yeah.
I thought someone
That
had done
Sean,
that.
Sean just did that.
Oh, did he?
There's like 3 migrations. So that part's done.
Oh, okay. And is that merged?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay, that's good.
So the Alembic thing, like we have to do that, I think,
Okay.
because SQLAlchemy Migrate is already deprecated and supposedly going away or something. I believe that's the deal. So I'm sure we had this discussion before, but Lance did this already, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we've got it down to 3 migrations, does that make it not a horrific task, or is it still pretty hard? I don't really know. Fails. Has anyone in OpenStack done this and written a guide that says, like, this is what you do?
I don't know. We didn't write a guide about how to convert it. We just wrote a guide for what you need to do now once everything's in Alembic. So
So Manila already did this. We should really ask those guys how they did it.
all right, that's,
Oh, yeah, because a lot of their migrations are the same.
yeah, it should be pretty similar. Yeah, so if they did it, we can adapt their tests and stuff. That should be.
You know,
Oh,
Who
they
did it
They
for-
did it like a long time ago. My friend Morantis did it like right after Manila started, I think. They
Huh.
did it in 2014.
oh, wow.
Wow.
That was a long time ago. I was just a wee open stacker at that point.
It's like cycles.
So Nova still hasn't done it. Wondering if Cinder was like the last holdout on this.
No, we'll be the last holdouts on Storyboard. Next topic, Storyboard. What are you going to do, Brian?
So Alembic, I mean,
What to the? So who did it for? Did you do it for Glance, or was it?
No, it's people who have disappeared.
Oh,
It was part of the OSIC effort. Make it easier to do the live upgrades. Collapsed. Everybody disappeared.
badness.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's got to be some documentation out there somewhere on how to do this for the people who originally did it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, massively SQLAlchemy stuff, but I think we might have to rewrite the whole script of building the database. Can we find out if there's some deadline that we really need to make sure this happens by? Like, does SQLAlchemy Migrate have some lifespan that we need to start worrying about? Launchpad blueprint for this is from. SQLAlchemy Migrate is owned by OpenStack, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so at least it won't like up and vanish out from underneath us.
This might be the thing. It says currently SQLAlchemy Migrate supports Python versions from 2.6 to 2.7.
No.
Well, it obviously runs on Python 3, or we wouldn't be able to deploy Cinder. I don't know what it supports, but I mean,
Right.
clearly it runs. Their setup.cfg says they support 3.4.
What's with the hashes at the beginning of the migration names?
That's part of how Alembic works, I think. What's this whole concept in Glance with the contract and expand thing?
It's just a it's just an organized way to do the database changes so that you can have two different versions of the API communicating with the database at the same time. So you do the expand to get the additional columns or whatever, or tables or whatever you need. Do a migrate, and then when everything's in a position where you've got only new API nodes running, then you can contract and get rid of the old stuff.
So however we do this, we need to make sure we test it more carefully, because I remember years ago when we did one of the compact DB operations, ended up generating tables that weren't the same as they were before, that we had to sort out. So we need to make sure we know how to at least make sure we don't change the schema on accident when we do this.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think we actually have a test inside of Cinder that looks for that with the current stuff. I don't know how it would apply
So
for this.
I have a stupid question. I just picked a random manila migration under the Alembic folder, and it's using SQLAlchemy in there for column, date, time, that kind of stuff.
SQLAlchemy is not going anywhere, but SQLAlchemy Migrate is a separate library.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so SQLAlchemy still around.
Right,
The
as far as
migrate.
ORM, right.
We're still
Okay.
going to use that for everything.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't look like.
I guess these hash looking IDs, Like I opened one of them and it says revision ID, A77E2, and it says revises, which I guess links to like the one before it.
So is there some way that you generate these?
I hope so. I mean, doing this by hand seems
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
I mean, because the code for doing it looks basically very similar to what you used to have.
Yeah. So they have Box environment in Manila called DB revision that runs an Alembic tool that takes an INI file.
Yep, and the INI files in Manila DB migrations Alembic, or Manila DB migrations.
Yeah.
But I don't see.
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of interested in this, but I have no idea if I can really feasibly go do this anytime soon. Because it looks like it's going to take a long time to do.
I've done database stuff before, and but yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. This is where you save the day, Wuche.
Any of those?
You just use a different voice for that?
Yeah.
You can't prove that was me.
And any of those outreachy people that are really into databases?
Well, it's you know. Okay, so there's this script.py.mako. Looks like maybe that's where the revisions come from. Yes. Revision ID, up revision, revises, down revision, create date. Or how that gets used, but that's where that comes from.
So the Neutron documentation from Pike has stuff on how to generate migrations from some script. You change the model. So I guess you interesting. So they coded something. They have some whole Neutron DB manage tool. And I guess they can change what they want in the SQLAlchemy models and then run this tool, and it'll generate a migration script for that change. But that sounds quite useful. Figuring out how to do it.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Neutron went to Alembic like a long time ago.
Yeah, I guess so.
Why are we even doing this? Just because SQLAlchemy is dead?
SQLAlchemy migrate.
Not being supported. It's just being kept alive by OpenStack.
Okay. Okay, well, at least we kind of understand better what's needed there. To some extent.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, it's right, not user facing, not feature full.
It's not sexy.
Exactly. So it's going to be
Harder to get somebody to work on it
exactly
until
it's absolutely necessary.
okay.
You. It'll happen in the unicorn release. Yeah, we probably need to start a list of the early and new stuff that we're committing to, that we're postponing. There was something yesterday that was kind of important that we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, there was the discussion earlier about the V2.
Right, so that'll go to you.
Yep. Just grep the Etherpad for unnamed unicorn.
Okay.
So I tweeted, let's get this trending. And Amy Spots comes, I love unicorns. And Ben Nemick goes, of course, they're magical horses. And then she posted a picture of, a unicorn prancing in happily. This was, the Ceph driver was one. Yeah, was there something else? Don't have anything.
I remember, I may be confusing this morning with yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's it. 'Cause those are the only things I remember typing unnamed unicorn for. I think I've been consistent using a dash. Oh, no, I could be wrong.
Well, Alchemy Migrate's going away because it's only back up to done anything since 2015.
Right, although it does seem to work with Python 3,
Yeah.
but they're not going to guarantee that.
Yeah, I mean, we're,
Or base bets, that's where this is coming from.
I think it's more just that nobody wants to maintain this library when there's another one that's probably better,
Yeah, I got you.
more broadly used.
Especially supported by the SQLAlchemy guys directly. The Alembic is. So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I got you.
Okay, so we're aware of it. Hopefully somebody will poke at it. It could be an outreachy thing. If by some strange miracle my time frees up, I can poke at it, but I'm not going to promise that. Why are we playing footsie today?
Put the camera under the table.
Just a footsie kind of day. On the bright side, it's not my stinky coffee foot.
Oh, no one wants that.
I did finally get my shoe to dry off by.
Does that foot have more energy?
Is it still going, or did you break it?
It had stopped a while back.
We're cruising along pretty well.
Because I saw it moving a little bit ago, and it was kind of creepy. It's like, what's going on down there? Okay, yeah. So we're like an hour ahead of schedule today, which is nice.
Maybe we should do the IPv6 if Rajat's still.
Oh, yeah, good thought.
Because you
Yeah.
have some information about that too.
Okay, can you give me 30 seconds for a bio break?
Actually,
you guys get Rajat's attention and we'll
Rajat.
The wide angle versus
Yeah, this is a wide angle.
I kind of want to mess with this Alembic thing,
Mhm.
but I know what's going to happen is I'm going to get
Yeah,
started doing
well,
it, and then I'm going to get pulled into
yeah.
something that's like time critical,
Right,
and I'm
right.
never going to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah, maybe our whole team could sort of
Yeah.
collaborate.
Yeah.
We could just go to Gorka and say, hey, your Cinder object stuff makes it hard to do this. And then he'll just do the whole thing in 2 days to prove us wrong. That'd work.
Oh, good. Okay.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's.
Should start the discussion.
What was that?
Yeah. So we'll discuss as soon as Jay gets back. Let's discuss the IPv6. Walt's done some work with that too, so while he's still here, it'd be good to talk about that.
Okay. IPv6. Stack gate found an issue in LVM.
I tested this like years ago. Fixed it for LVM, LIO. Surprised that it's. I definitely made this work along with it.
Is encouraged for vendors to adopt and test IPv6 against their product.
I call out stuff about this every time I do a new driver review.
Okay.
There's always something in like every new driver that fails to account for IPv6. So I would encourage people to do that. Everyone else is about it. My impression is that Cinder generally will work with IPv6 at this point. Is that not the case?
In general, it does work. Yeah, I tested SAF
Yeah.
and IPv6. But that's as far as
I know a
went.
bunch of drivers at least try to support it. I don't know and thoroughly test it. But
I don't know the 3-part driver.
Sure. So the issue that appeared in LVM driver was that the IP and port was separated by a colon, and the same separator is used by IPv6. So the port couldn't be determined from the strings. So it encapsulated the IP in a list.
I found similar things like that in many drivers.
Yeah, the same pattern in many drivers.
Yeah, because people like to write code that does a split on a colon and find the port, and then as soon as you pass an IPv6 address, it doesn't work.
So we have a patch we need to get into DevStack for IPv6 support. Well, there are 2 patches out there, it looks like, that Rajat put out there.
Oh, okay. So there's some people OpenStack wide that are trying to do IPv6 only testing, I guess. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So can we implement any testing mechanism to test if any driver is working with IPv6 or not?
I don't know.
CI requirement.
I mean, is that actually something that I don't know how easy that is to do. Like, I don't really know what it takes to do that.
Do what?
To go ask third-party CI drivers to run an IPv6 test.
So standing on DevStack and IPv6 only is fairly straightforward. There's a couple bars to put in local.conf, but obviously your backend has to be IPv6 viewable.
Well, and we want them to run them for 4 and 6, I think. So,
There is a mode you can put it in 4 and 6 mode.
well, but I mean, for testing Cinder drivers, we don't want to stop testing IPv4. So
Right. Yeah.
if we're going to do anything with third-party CI, then suddenly it's like, hey, run twice as many test jobs. So that would work or not.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
What does the TC say about IPv6? Is it a goal that everything?
So
has
they
to
have
work
a
in?
goal for IPv6 only, but I don't know what they spelled out for. I guess we should read the goal and see what they actually say that means.
And I was tasked to do a spike investigation on, what's the state of the world with Cinder and IPv6, and I was able to stand up a whole dev stack on IPv6,
Right.
and Nova, Glance, and Ceph, and Cinder, all IPv6. Keystone was all IPv6.
So the goal criteria says that they want to run, MySQL and Rabbit and stuff on IPv6 only, and that OpenStack booted VMs communicate over IPv6.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to run things like Sahara, it runs IPv6. The goal doesn't even specifically mention Cinder, so it seems kind of up to interpretation for what we would. And obviously, we should support this. I don't know. I don't know if anybody is really looking for any particular success criteria for it right now.
So what I had tested, I had all of the services running on IPv6, and this was just a standard dev stack, single stack. You configure it for IPv6 only.
Yeah.
You can do an OpenStack endpoint list, and all the endpoints were IPv6 addresses. I had Nova talking to Ceph, Lance talking to Ceph, Cinder talking to Ceph. I was able to boot a VM. I was able to create volumes, all with Ceph. I didn't test LVM. I didn't test any other drivers. So
I want to say that there's been some people in our product that are doing similar kind of things, testing the Red Hat product for IPv6. And
they want our product to ship with IPv6 support and everything working. We tested in a rocky version of our product, and then RabbitMQ had serious problems.
really,
Yeah, but the latest versions offer master. I didn't even run Tempest. I just did some basic stuff. If anything.
yeah. I don't really know what we should actively be doing about. The main thing we've done so far is to try to pay some attention to it when we're reviewing drivers. After that, I'm not really sure what the next step is for anything that we should be doing.
Is Gorka still on the phone?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, so there's one question in your iSCSI, or in the sanitizing IPv6. You've got a test iSCSI location function that just passes. Was that like leftover code, or is that needed?
Let me check.
Because the patch looks good otherwise, but Rajat had asked why that was there.
Let me see.
It's a nice test.
But, you know, given that it's you, we assume there's a reason it's there.
Ooh, nope. I should uncomment that. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll fix it now. Yep, thanks.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Berka. That stack change is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it looks pretty sensible.
Washed it twice. Smell like coffee for days. Okay. So, is there any further discussion around IPv6? I mean, it sounds like you've done some sniff testing. It looks good. Or it's more than sniff testing. It works with IPv6
It's
and Ceph. Okay.
Yeah, Ceph has gotten a fair amount of testing on this, I think, in a couple places.
This one. 6S.
But that's
That's what I
probably,
saw last time. So, yeah. See, the volume check doesn't do it, but I'm pretty sure the smoke test was more than that.
so I think for Cinder, I mean, I think we're kind of at the point where we're assuming that it's working until proven otherwise. Like, I don't think there's any known, like, places we need to go fix anything right now.
All right. Well, that's good. And I mean, my gut feeling is it's not fair at this point until it's a hard requirement to ask more of vendors. I wonder if we should add a note to our driver development doc that says, you know, strongly encourage you to verify IPv6 support if your backend supports it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an easy enough change.
One thing I've wondered about this that I've called out in a handful of new driver reviews, tangentially related to this, is there's a lot of people that will make a new config option called something IP. I'll look at it and go say, well, do you want IPs or do you also want to support host names and DNS host names? Really just want IPs. And I think the answer a lot of the time is they just want any address that could be a host name or something. So I've been trying to get, lean away from people just coding everything as give me an IP, they give me a host address or something, which, at least from the config point of view, hopefully helps with this. One thing I don't know is there's an Oslo config option like IP address option type or something, like instead of a string. I don't know if we should be using that more places, or maybe if we're coding everything to take IPs or host names, it's the wrong thing to use. But I don't know how common it is for people to use host names, but I assume a fair number of people deploy using DNS.
Right.
So there's an IP opt in Oslo config.
Yep.
We can use that where appropriate. I think right now we use string options a lot more. Oh, well, and actually better, there's one, that's what I was talking about. There's actually a host address option,
Right. That's okay.
which will take an IP or a host name kind of thing.
I think Doreen added that actually.
There's probably some places that we should go convert Cinder from string opt to host address opt. A minor thing with this. I guess if we're gonna, advise people with guidelines, we can say anywhere you're trying to parse ports out of addresses, think about this. Anywhere you're generating like a URI address in it, you might need to think about this. Because the bracket thing that's what everybody gets thrown off by, is using brackets.
Yeah.
Because that's what we had to fix in the LVM driver last time. We fixed it for IPv6, was using brackets for things. Is IPv6 commonly supported on backends? Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, they're always on like a private network anyway, so I don't know how many people.
Yeah, that's why it always surprised me that it was such a big issue at all, because most of these deployments are on private networks.
Well, it's big for, I assume for telco stuff. It's, they love IPv6. But I don't know.
Well, and there was a huge government requirement where they wouldn't take your stuff if it wasn't IPv6 compliant for a while.
Yeah.
We went through a massive effort on BlueJean to get it to support IPv6, which was ridiculous because it was an all internal. Basically it's self-contained network, but.
Well,
I think
for
a lot of
most,
organizations, well, if we're going to support IPv6, we're going to convert a whole network to it, so it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So you can't really deploy a small little software package like OpenStack IPv4 when the rest of their entire infrastructure is IPv6.
So, I mean, there was this whole panic not that long ago about the fact that we were running out of IP addresses.
Yeah, that's still a thing.
So, why are we, and now, I mean, how many things in this room have an IP address? Which granted
It's
isn't
not the only thing that does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why has that not become a greater panic?
Because everybody's adding everything. And mobile phone stuff uses tons of IPv6.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
So I may be on an IPv6 address and I don't know it.
Yeah.
Guess I don't look that closely. The times I've looked at some sort of IPv4, but
IPv6 actually is a much nicer situation than before with NAT. And it gives you a lot of cool stuff.
plus you can have dead beef.
Yeah. Yeah.
As if we didn't have enough of that last night.
Facebook codes, Facebook with a C, their addresses for IPv6 stuff.
Interesting. So FACEBOOC.
Yeah.
That's leet.
Yeah.
Okay. Rajat, anything else you wanted to discuss there?
No, just curious about the action items here.
We
Okay.
have a lot of them.
How do I?
I don't know that we have a lot of action items for this, do we?
Well, I mean, add a note to the development documentation.
Yeah.
Um,
Remind people that IPv6 does exist
yeah.
whenever they're writing a driver.
What were you laughing at?
It's just funny.
Oh. Well, then, just you playing footsie with Eric again.
We have fiber channel over IPv6 yet?
FCOE, I think.
I don't know. I think we're probably in pretty good shape on this, honestly.
Okay. That's good to know.
Well, the patch against the LVM driver kind of made me go,
Yeah.
I haven't done any iSCSI attaches. It's because I don't have a back end that has it, so maybe I should test it.
Oh yeah, we got to get test IPv6 with multipath too.
What could possibly go wrong?
That also exercises OS Brick too. Gorka, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Have you tested any IPv6 stuff with OS Brick?
Nope, nothing.
Neither have I, so I'm sure it works great.
Me too.
You can,
there you go.
I mean, you can grep in the OS brick stuff, and like the SQLAlchemy connector does a URL split on a colon.
Awesome.
That one probably doesn't work.
Yeah, probably doesn't work.
Who wants to test brick with IPv6?
But it's, I mean, it's getting tested by any of these jobs that are testing, the LVM driver.
Okay.
At least for, part of it. Gonna go test the SQLAlchemy connector.
Do those tests actually do an iSCSI over IPv6?
Well, if they say IPv6 only, it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
They do. That's why I had to fix the LVM, because the Nova was not able to do an attachment. So it is testing IPv6.
So we would need somebody with a Scale IO backend to go verify that it works with IPv6. Okay.
Found a comment from Gorka and Brick saying, I don't know if IPv6 will be reported with brackets or not, so we'll make it optional. So he at least looked at part of it.
Yeah.
It's good. For discovery portals. A lot of the obvious paths we've probably touched on at some point already. Finding the corner cases.
Okay. Right, let's move on to the next topic. Let's talk about replication before lunch, because I think it would be fun to have Walt here for that.
Okay.
Were you moving it? Sweet, I'm on board.
Replication. What's the state of the world with replication at this point? Drivers working on failback. Jay leaves the room. Anyone deploying replication stuff?
Testing it all. I don't think we have any customers that have complained about it, so I doubt they're using it. Thankfully, I wouldn't have a clue how to address any of the issues.
My phone number for my ex-wife.
Anyway, okay. Sorry, what were we?
Replication.
Replication.
Where is it? How's it going?
It's in Cinder.
Something is.
It's backend supported.
Some of them do.
A lot of them are going to be removed that supported it.
Great.
So,
Do we have any plausible story of, if somebody wants to go deploy Cinder with replication, they can set it up and, presumably they have some idea that they can do failover and fail back. Can anyone actually successfully do this? What I'm wondering.
Idea.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't support it. Damn it.
John's been working on it for RBD.
I tested long time ago on RBD,
Yeah.
and I discovered a bunch of issues in general. I fixed them, and that's the last time I looked into it. The freeze was broken and a bunch of other stuff. Then I added support for replication when we deploy in active-active. The RBD driver also supports active-active with replication. That was added by John Bernard, and it should be working.
Yeah. I think
So-
that's been one of the more recent ones.
So were you able to verify like failing over to one backend, then failing back?
Well, that's what John
Well,
was working
when
with recently was the
Yeah.
failback.
The failback, I tested the failback, but in a non-nice way, which was basically saying default, and it would fall back. Basically, would fail over to the original one, which was not clean, because you will always see your backend as failed over. And like Eric was saying, John was working on making it more cleanly, so you could actually leave your system as not being failover via promotion. I don't know the status of that work.
Yeah. Well, he landed some code a while ago for promoting a failed backend. I don't know. I think it's an area that's kind of getting some slow work still. It would be interesting to check in with Erlon, because I think he's been fixing some stuff for SolidFire for replication too.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to know what he has, because he kind of he wrote one bug report that just listed like 8 or 9 things in the SolidFire driver that needed to be fixed for replication. I think he fixed a lot of them. So he might have some idea of what else is going on with this too. But I think it's a feature that we've gotten a long way on, and we really just need to kind of clean up and see if we can get it to like an actual known useful state. Because there's been people for years hacking on parts of it, but I don't know that we really ever finished the whole story with the thing. I know at some point, a few years ago, yeah, we got replication now, but if you actually tried to go deploy it and then use it for like operational stuff, like there was no way that it was going to be pretty, for sure. I think some of that's been slowly getting fixed up over time, but everybody kind of quit talking about replication a little bit ago. Nobody's really been.
I don't think anyone's using it.
Well, I'm sure nobody's using it because I don't think any of it worked until quite recently. But it probably is something we should figure out, what it would take to actually get it done. We were talking about in our product, making it a priority a while ago. I think we went other directions for now, but see that happening again, maybe.
I think the Ceph driver does support it.
Yeah. Well, it's got a bunch of.
You need another Ceph.
Yeah, you have to deploy a whole other
Cluster.
cluster and do a whole bunch of configuration. That's I think when John was working on that last, I recall maybe we were waiting for something to get fixed or added to Ceph itself to help with this. I don't remember. It's been a while, so that's probably done now. Then there's a whole bunch of other pieces of replication that are even less done, like replicated groups. We even have drivers that supposedly do that. I have no idea if they work.
Wasn't that the tiramisu flavor that Shing was working on and then she disappeared?
I have no idea what name was which thing at this point because after V1, I kind of just ignored replication for pay attention to it.
Tiramisu was the version that replaced the V1 debacle that kind of sort of solidified the API with the drivers. It's supposed to work, but I don't know. There was a version after that.
Which I think was what Shing was trying to get in, where it added in groups and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that was never finished.
I don't think it was finished. It was.
I mean, it's in Cinder now, though. I think so. Oh yeah, and Gorka has a whole interesting document on how a bunch of this stuff works.
When does he have time to write this stuff?
He just doesn't sleep ever. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's probably still of interest, but
So it sounds like follow up with Erlon to find out what he's found working on it with Solid Fire.
well, just because he was obviously touching it, I don't really know what he was.
I had started updating the spec for it a long time ago and went down a rat hole because then we found a whole bunch of things that nobody could speak to as to whether it was accurate or not. And so that has never finished.
Sorry if I'm paying attention for a second. What was never finished?
I started making some updates to the old replication